From the great Soviet encyclopedia, Speleology, from Greek spelean, the scientific study of caves. This is Denis from Moscow, a caver. I'm calling from the mountains, from Arabica. Vasya, listen, we have a problem. An hour and a half ago, a caver fell in a big shaft at 500 meters. August the 23rd, 2003, 12:30 p.m. A telephone rang at the Sochi office of the Russian Ministry of Emergency Affairs. The call was from Abkhazia. There in the mountains, an international speleological expedition had been exploring the Krubera cave for more than 3 weeks. One of the members of the expedition fell 30 meters. He had a compression fracture of the spine, a compound fracture of the shin, and multiple bruises. It happened at 500 meters depth. To carry him out, his friends had to overcome half a kilometer vertical pitches and narrow slots, which are difficult even for healthy people. This story will happen at the very end of the expedition. For now, let us go back to the beginning. What drives these people? A desire to feel an adrenaline burst or something else? What makes them go to the heart of the Caucasus, the region known all over the world as the place where hostage-taking and exploding buildings are usual? In our film, we will try to answer these questions. You won't see stage scenes here. An unbiased camera captured only things that really happened on the expedition. Cavers are the lost pioneers. Everything on the surface of our planet has been discovered long ago, but when you descend into the cave, you can enter a true terra incognita. Among the mountains meadows of the Arabica Plateau, the entrance to the Krubera cave looks pretty common, a narrow cleft in the ground. It's hard to imagine that the deepest abyss in the world is hidden below this hell. I see the sky. Do you? Yes. Every time you climb out of the cave, you think you will never have a desire to return. But after an hour or two, a stupid thought comes into your mind. Why not go again? Dmitry Sklerenko, Moscow. Among the cavers Sklar, caving since 1989, profession, advertising, member of the CAVEX Team. It's a live cave out there. The deeper you are, the more it's alive. Roar of the water. Ugh, everything is trembling. A real cave. Deep and alive. Denis Provalov, Moscow. Among the cavers Provalich. Caving since 1989. Profession, teacher, leader of many CAVEX expeditions. The Krubera cave has another name. Among cavers it is called Voronya, that is crow. This name was given due to black birds nesting in the entrance pitch, which were often mistaken for crows. Tired. Of course, new explorations, world records, beautiful waterfalls. Yes, it's all there. But it is worth going into a deep cave just for that single moment of getting back out to the surface. Ilya Zarkov, Boston, USA, among cavers Ilyuha, caving since 1989, professor of mathematics at Harvard University, members of the CAVEX team. 7 countries are represented in the expedition team: Russia, Ukraine, Spain, France, Australia, United States and Abkhazia. More than 40 people came to the Caucasus. War in Chechnya is rather close, but aspiration for the unknown is stronger than any fear. The expedition needs food and equipment for more than a month. Another task is to get all these foreigners up to the 2,200 meters up a mountain in Abkhazia, a country with no official status. Preparation for such expedition isn't easy. At 500 meters deep, the injured caver, Sasha Kabanichin, gets first aid. Alexander Kabanichin, Arkhangelsk, Russia, among cavers horizontal. Caving since 1982, has a unique Nordic-Russian sense of humor, a friend of the CAVEX team. I remember that I most likely did scream while falling, well, to attract attention in the camp. At this moment, several people were in the underground camp at -500, among them Bernard French and Sergio Spanish. I remember sitting in the tent in the camp when we heard a very loud sound from the pitch above, just over the camp. A lot of time passed. Sergio García-Dils de la Vega, Seville, Spain, among cavers done, second-generation speleologist, professional archaeologist, historian, member of the CAVEX team. At first we couldn't understand anything, but when we heard shouts we realized what happened and immediately started looking for the fallen caver. I was ascending the rope, and as I was moving up, the wall was covered with dripping blood. Bernard Tourte, Toulouse, France, among cavers Buddha, caving 1980, profession cave rescue, has lots of experience in organizing rescue operations. Finally, I reached Sasha. His leg was twisted at 120 degrees. It looked like he had a compound fracture. I climbed higher so that I could see his face. His eyes were half closed. He was unconscious. Sasha Kabanichin was fortunate that Bernard happened to be nearby. Bernard has the experience of more than 100 caving rescues. There are very few specialists like that in the world. In the Soviet times, every tourist who took vacations in Abkhazia had to visit Novaya Fon Show Cave, the main local tourist attraction. For the majority, it was their first and the last acquaintance with the underground world. Very few knew about deep vertical caves up on the mountains of Abkhazia. Let me introduce to you the size of Abkhazia. In Novaya Fon, in mountain Iverskaya, the Mother Nature constructed underground palaces and halls. This wonderland is open for tourists. A journey to the fairy tale begins here. For our cavers, the start of the journey is not a fairy tale at all. They need to get across the border and up to the mountains and bring along tons of equipment and food with them. Helping caving expeditions has become a good business for some locals. Let's start with simple things first. My congratulations to everybody. We begin the expedition. Finally, the whole team is together. Early mountain in the mountains. The camp is slowly waking up. A new day begins. First, everyone wants to wash up and have breakfast. We're cooking milk macaroni today. Konstantin Mukhin, Moscow. Among CAVEX Munia, second-generation speleologist, profession mechanic, member of the CAVEX team. Breakfast. Breakfast. Water is essential for cooking as well as for other everyday needs. But there is no water on the Arabica plateau. There is only last year's snow. Sergio, with a group of foreigners, is organizing a water supply. He says this is a Spanish system. The sun warms up the snow inside the polyethylene tube. It melts and becomes precious water. It looks unusual, but it works. You will never guess what this man is doing. He's building a wall, behind which will be a toilet. So comes the question, what if the wall crashes down? We hope it won't. Anyway, it's a beautiful dance, even though rather unexpected. Someone goes to the toilet and ends up under the boulders. 3 weeks later, Sasha Kabanichin will fall from 30 meters. What's that? A coincidence? Something is going on in the base camp. Cavers are going to see if anything has changed in the cave. No one has been there in almost 2 years. Preparations takes a considerable amount of time. Equipment for the underground trip is not simple, and moreover, there is lots of it and it's heavy. It's cold, 100% humidity, and the temperature is just above 0.13 degrees. That is why cavers wear these one-piece suits, the undersuits. It has a zipper from the back up to here. Cavers sleep in the comfortable and warm sleeping bags. They are made of special material that quickly dries out moisture. When you go to sleep in your wet undersuit, these sleeping bags absorb the water and condense it on the upper layer. In order to get these sleeping bags to the underground camp dry, we need to pack them into special waterproof bags. There is a lot of water in cave. It is closed very tight and put into the transport bag. A transport bag is a standard bag to carry everything around the cave. Then, cavers wear these special protecting oversuits. Clean suit. When Sklar returns from the cave, he will see what has happened to his oversuit. Such beauty is short-lived. That's why the friends are hastening to touch it now. Let's continue with introducing the caving equipment. Boots are also not that simple. You could think that they are simple rubber boots, but they are not. There is no textile inner layer, just pure rubber. If you fall into water, you can pull out the water, wipe the inside, and it does not need any more drying. These gloves are also special, and they don't last more than 1 or 2 expeditions. The rigging equipment, tons of carabiners of various forms and size. The helmet protects the caver from falling rocks and bumping against the ceiling. There is a lot to be done, so cavers are divided in groups. Every group has its own task. Some people are responsible for the underground camps. There are 4 of them, at depths of -500, -1,200, -1,400, and finally at -1,000 1,700 meters, the deepest underground cave on the Earth. A group will descend there to the work on the blockage in search of a continuation. For group coordination, there is a telephone cable installed throughout the cave. Sasha Karpichenko is responsible for keeping it working. Alexander Karpichenko, Kiev, Ukraine. Among cavers, Kirpich, the brick, caving since 1989. Profession, rescuer. We begin rigging to 1,700 meters. For that, we need about 2 kilometers of rope. And later, all that has to be carried up back to the surface. That's the way it is. From the caver's glossary, rigging is the process of fixing ropes on vertical parts of the cave. Rope is the route that connects cavers with the surface. Fact: 2 kilometers of rope weighs more than 100 kilograms. It does not sound too much, but there is 100% humidity in the cave, and the rope is completely wet by the end of the expedition. By then it feels 3 times heavier. Cave rigging begins. Small holes on the walls of vertical pitches must be drilled to hold the spits. From the caver's glossary, spits, a metal anchor on the wall to which a carabiner is attached to hold the rope. In general, it is a routine, but it never forgives disrespect. Life depends on the quality of the work. One spit drilling requires about 20 minutes. During our expedition, we will need to drill about 500 spits. Rope in this part is fixed, and further down. A new pitch is behind this slot, and a new piece of rope. Rope free. Okay, from the caver's glossary, rope free. A call caver is used to inform each other if the rope is free for use. The further down cavers go, the more water there is. This summer there was a lot of rain in the mountains, and all this water rushes down into the cave along its twisting passages and sheer pitches. There really was no water in winter, but now, going down such a traverse, shower, cold, very cold, the carbide lamp goes straight out. Remember, everyone wanted to touch me this morning. My new suit, it was clean, and now... Bernard unhooked Sasha off the carabiner where he was hanging and lowered him down to the camp. Here he could administer the first aid. First of all, he had to stop the bleeding. Taking into account how much blood Sasha lost while hanging and was still losing at the moment, in total he would have lost about 2 liters. There might be other injuries too, and he could be losing even more blood, and then could be facing death pretty soon. What to do? There are no examples in history of cave rescue of lifting a caver with his kind of injuries from such depths in a cave like this alive. What's worse, the day before all the underground telephones were hit by a thunderstorm and there was no connection with the surface. Nedra, do you hear me? After we got Sasha into the tent, we decided that Bernard should stay with him, and I would quickly go to the surface and call the rescuers. Because the telephone didn't work, we decided I should go. Because I can speak Russian. Bernard diagnosed that Sasha had his backbone fractured. It would be fatal to hesitate. So Sergio ascended in less than 2 hours. Climbing 500 vertical meters in such a short time is very fast. When Bernard diagnosed Sasha's backbone injury, it became clear that he needed to be fixed still, so a special stretcher was necessary. There is no such stretcher in Abkhazia, only in Sochi. On the night of August the 24th, rescuers from Sochi arrived. They brought equipment for lifting the injured, including the special stretcher. Walking around in the mountains may sometimes give unexpected results. So many new caves appear on the map this way. but more often you just find signs of previous generations of cavers. It is not accidental that the Arabica Plateau is often called the Mecca of the Soviet speleology, the signs of old expeditions. Such cable was once used instead of rope, and all great achievements were made on this kind of cable. Oleg Klimchuk, Kiev, Ukraine. Among cavers, Klim, second-generation caver. In caving since early childhood, profession outdoor business, member of the CAVEX team. I remember the headlines of French magazines at the time when Krubera-Voronya reached 1,110 meters. It was the hope of the entire Soviet speleology for the world record. Heavy equipment is not a barrier for the records. Fear the Russians. In the Soviet Union, speleology was always in the shadow of alpinism. Cave exploration didn't seem to have any military significance, so cavers didn't get any government support. That's why almost all necessary equipment was homemade. With this homemade equipment, a group of Georgian cavers came to Arabica in the beginning of the 60s. The Krubera cave was discovered among others. It was then named after the great Russian cast scientist Krubera. The first explorers descended to 180 meters, and then the cave was forgotten for 20 years. In 1982, a group of Kiev cavers appeared near the Krubera cave. They reached the depths of 340 meters. Around that time, the cave got its second name, Voronya. Year 1992. The Soviet Union didn't exist anymore. A war broke down in Abkhazia. Soldiers were hiding in the mountains and nobody cared about caves. The war brings suffering to ordinary people. Cavers come back to Arabica only in the late 90s. During 2 years of exploration, a Ukrainian team, second echelon, found the continuation of Krubera-Voronya cave and reached the depths of 1,215 meters. In September 2000, an international expedition organized by the Ukrainian Speleological Association stopped at the mark of 1,410 meters. A new millennium was coming. It was a regular winter expedition in Arabica. The team was very much the same as today. And the new world record, first time in history, as a result of efforts by several generations of cavers, the deepest cave in the world was outside Western Europe. The huge room, with a beautiful underground lake on the record depths, was given the symbolic name, the Chamber of Soviet Speleologists. The French always were considered as trendsetters in speleology. They couldn't accept the situation. In a year, the news broke. Mirolda, a cave in the Alps, reaches 1,733 meters, a challenge to Voronya. However, the French could not confirm their record, but that would become known later.
De la misma manera que los alpinistas, después de una expedición,
After expeditions, climbers show photos of the peaks they climbed, for example Everest. But the main result of the speleological expedition should be a good cave map. Nobody considers the photos of the caves. For example, when the French claimed the world depth record with Mirolda, it was not taken into account because the map had a mistake. The cave indeed turned out to be less deep, and Voronya kept the record. During the expedition in winter 2001, another discovery was made. At 1,440 meters, the underground river disappears into a siphon. From the caver's glossary, siphon, gallery or passage completely flooded with water. It is possible that a cave continues behind the siphon, but diving is impossible without special equipment. To pass the siphon and to see what's on the other side became the main goal of the 2003 expedition. As a rule, people travel through the cave in pairs. Solo caving is fearful. A party of three is too slow, somebody always has to wait the others, and waiting means freezing. The pair Kostya Mukhin and Ilya Zharkov, which is always called Mukha Ilyuha, is known for its exceptional strength. They don't need someone to offer them the hardest work. They choose it themselves. We're about to descend to minus 1,200 and set up the camp. We'll take rope there, rig, sleep in the camp, and do the rigging further towards minus 1,400 until we run out of carabiners. Notice the last sentence. We're going until we run out of equipment, not until we are tired. Cavers go down. They will be underground for a long time. To work and to maintain their strength, they should eat well, and hot food is better. How to keep the food for several days in the cave with 100% humidity? A solution is simple. Everything is wrapped in several layers of packing film. We are packing a food module, because this module will go to the very bottom of the cave, and there is plenty of water. It is important to make sure that all this food reaches its destination safe and dry. The module is for 12 person days. It means that for one man there is food for 12 days. For 2 men, 6 days, and so on. The packing film also helps in underground movie making. It protects cameras better than any special box. If a camera is not protected, it dies in a few days. It's not going to survive to the end of the expedition. That's why we pay special attention to this process. If Denis did not wrap the camera, you could not see this film, at least not its underground part. Sometimes the camera dies because of 100% humidity, not because of physical damage. When there is so much water around, it is easy to imagine what would happen with the camera were it not protected. And don't forget that the water temperature is just 2–3 degrees. The air is even colder. It is hard to imagine how it is possible to exist in such conditions, not to mention to shoot video. When someone speaks about caves, they usually imagine beautiful chambers with stalactites. But when you ask a professional caver, what is a cave? He would answer, it is mud and water. And the cold. Humidity and cold add more difficulties for shooting. Water condenses on the camera's objective and it is ceased to focus. But there are lots of beautiful things in the cave as well. Waterfalls when you see them from the outside, or a winding meander where you do not know what is behind the next turn. From the caver's glossary, meander, the name of a river in Greece, which is known for its sinuous course, in speleology a winding horizontal part of the cave. But when you have to carry heavy bags in a meander, you don't care about the surrounding beauty. The meander becomes a real nightmare when the stretcher with the injured Sasha Kabanichin has to be carried through. But that's later. More than 10 hours have passed since it happened. Sasha Kabanichin lies half-conscious. He is under influence of strong analgesics. Meanwhile, on the surface, the newly arrived rescues from Sochi, together with the expedition members, are making the rescue plan. By now, the telephone connection with the camp has been restored. What's his pulse? His pulse was 198 beats per minute. This is a lot. And the consequences could be very bad. First, we need a special stretcher. Then it is necessary to widen some parts of the cave. There are 4 very narrow passages, which could be a problem. Bernard was moving along the caving, drawing his big crosses in places where it would be not possible to carry the stretcher. These places had to be blasted. At last, the special stretcher arrives in the underground camp. Sasha is warmly closeted. He'll have to spend a long time without moving, a real danger of hypothermia. Finally, the long journey up begins. Sasha Kabanichin is about to become some sort of a champion. Nobody has been yet rescued from an alpine cave of such depths alive. Dead cavers were either buried in the cave or taken to the surface with a relative's permission by parts. If a caver dies somewhere deep, there are two choices: either to bury him in the cave or lift him to the surface by parts. But the relative's permission for partitioning is required. When strangers in camouflage clothing with machine guns suddenly appear anywhere in Caucasus Mountains, it causes worry, to say the least. Fortunately, after close acquaintance, they happen to be Abkhazian bodyguards. Besides, they speak fair English, especially when explaining to Pilara, the Spanish girl, how to shoot a Kalashnikov.
When I say, you can shoot, okay?
Okay.
Without mine, no, okay?
Okay.
We can shoot. Oh, very good. Very good.
Это правда.
It's true when we speak about Abkhazia. 99% of people do not know where it is or if it exists at all.
Cuando decimos que vamos de expedición a Abjasia,
When we say that we're going on an expedition in Abkhazia, people think we're crazy. In Europe, people think that there is a war going on, and there are many other problems as well. Same day, another group of armed people appeared near the camp. This time, they were Abkhazian cavers, led by Vladimir Kakalia. It's just a weapon for hunting. Presence of machine guns did not draw much attention. Everybody knows, in the Caucasus, a man grows up with a gun in his hands. Hello. Hi. Your lamp should not burn the rope. The Abkhazian cavers are going to the limits of their possessions, into the depths of their land. Let the spirits of these mountains, the spirits of these areas help them. Vladimir Kakhalia will be the first Abkhazian caver to cross the 1 kilometer mark. But the main task of the expedition is to pass the siphon, the one we mentioned earlier. If it happens, yet another record would be set. Nobody has ever dived at 1,440 meters down a cave before. The main reason is that it's very difficult to get bulky and heavy diving equipment that far down. Tomorrow we're going into the cave to set up the camp at minus 1,400. The next day, on the 13th of August, we dive the siphon. Nobody knows if there is a passage. If there is, then we will certainly try to go there. This place in the cave is a key one, because there, at minus 1,440 meters, all the cave water disappears. It simply goes somewhere under the wall. If you descend 1,400 meters down the river and there is only 300 meters to the 1,710 meter depth without river, then the river must go somewhere. And there maybe lies the biggest and the most beautiful part of the cave. It is there where we should go. Some words about the siphon. Think like a plumber, and perhaps these words won't confuse you. Cavers always try to follow the water in a cave. It is the underground river that serves as a guiding line to the very bottom. But in the Krubera-Voronya, the passage at the record depth of 1,710 meters is dry. Just the tiny stream reaches the bottom, and all the water goes into the siphon. The cave may continue behind it, or it may end up with an impassable squeeze. In order to find the answer, we need to dive into this icy and muddy water, so muddy that you can't see further than 20 centimeters. Oleg Klimchuk and Denis Provalov are going to do that. They have been training for it. Cave divers need a lot of support. They need help with filling up the bottles and carrying down the equipment. And someone has to set up a camp near the siphon. Sasha Kabanik and Julia Timashevskaya are going to do that. This young woman looks fragile, but she is an experienced caver, and she is 100 points ahead of the most men. Yulia Timashevskaya, Poltava, Ukraine, among cavers Timocha, caving since 1989. Profession, teacher, the leader of the club Poltava Spileo. How do people live in the underground camp at 1,400 meters? We aren't saying it is very comfortable, of course, but the food is hot. Yes, it's true that we forgot to pack spoons and tea in the bag. That's why only the lemon is in the boiling water. But everything else is good. By the way, today is Sasha's birthday, and the table is particularly festive. The rescue operation has already been going for more than a day. It is difficult. There are many passages on the way where the stretchers can't be carried through. They need to be widened, but this is a hard and time-consuming process. One of the key specialists on the underground explosives is Nikolai Solovyov. It is his word that became popular in the expedition. With every explosion, we add some health to our friend Sasha. Nikolai Solovyov, Kiev, among cavers Solovey, caving since 1972. Profession, physical training teacher, the member of the CAVEX team, the key specialist in passing boulders, chokes. To compensate pressure in your ears at the time of the explosion, it's better to keep your mouth open. Space in the cave is rather limited, and the tympanic membrane could be damaged if you don't do that. And now a narrow winding meander is on the way. Do you know how an injured is carried in the narrow meander? Well, unbelievable. The rescuers lie on the bottom of the meander as live rails, and the stretcher is pulled on these rails. Do you understand? So the stretcher does not catch on the bottom or walls of the meander, which narrows at the bottom. The news spreads fast in Arabica. Within a day, other camps learn about the accident, and other caving groups come to the Voronya base camp to help. Now, in addition to the expedition members at Sochi's rescuers, speleologists from St. Petersburg, Russia and Belarus participate in the rescue operation. No controversies. The main goal is to save the human life. As for Bernard, he doesn't leave the stretcher for 2 days. The surface is near, but everyone is exhausted. There is not even enough strength for the last pitch. One more night in the cave. Now nobody thinks about what will happen in 7 days. If you think about such things, it is better not to enter the cave. You should be ready for everything, but you should be working on your current task. Now the task is to pass the siphon. Diving into a siphon that far from the entrance is a very difficult task. First, you have to dive into the siphon. It is itself unpleasant and difficult, and not everybody could do it. But you also have to bring lots of diving equipment, very heavy equipment, fins, masks, flashlights, weights. Every diver must carry about 10 kilos of weights, underwater dry suit, more warm underwear. This heavy and fragile equipment needs to be delivered to the siphon. And you realize that it's very serious. The fact that you are diving at minus 1,440 meters, a very long way from the surface. No one in the world has ever done this. The camp is 40 meters above the siphon. By the usual standards, it is nothing. But in the cave, in order to get from the camp to the siphon, you must go through a narrow meander, where you have to pass the bags with equipment, and then descend 40 meters pitch. By the way, it is equal to the height of the 12-story building. Oleg Klimchuk will go first. Denis Provalov said, Oleg should be the first. He is lucky. Last minutes before the dive into the unknown. Time stretches like rubber. At this moment, you feel that the entire team is looking at you. Diving into a siphon is a very emotional moment. It is emotional not only because you don't know what can happen to you, but more importantly, because it is just a water surface. And beyond that, there may be a cave or no cave. Last moments. Last preparations for the dive, they are of course the most intense. Now he's ready, the mask is on, everything is checked, everything is set, and then he goes under the water. And at this very moment, when he submerges, all emotion energy is transferred to those waiting outside. They see how a man disappeared into the unknown. He's gone into a world about which we know nothing. We can only guess that there is a way, but there may be no way, and it's all end with a slot. Or maybe there is a long, long, endless siphon that no one in the world can ever dive through. Good luck, be careful. Let's go, Klim, we love you. Let's go, Klim. Just be careful. When Klim went under the water, he had such powerful lights on his helmet. Just when he turned towards us in the last minutes before the dive, I saw how powerful his lights were. And then suddenly, he went underwater, under the wall, and the lights immediately disappeared. I was worried that there wouldn't be anywhere to swim, that there would be just some slots and some impossible obstacles. But I felt a huge relief when I realized that there was somewhere to swim, and the passage indeed continued, the cave continued. So he went away, 1 minute, another and another. A lot of time passed, and then I felt something. I had a safety line in one hand and a camera in another. I tried to shoot. I pointed the camera at Sasha on the water and then again on Sasha. There was nothing we could do. We were worried. How much time? Third minute. And suddenly I felt jerking on the line. I thought something was going on there, but I had a doubt whether there was a jerking. But yes, I did feel the signal. But I said nothing to anybody. I felt such a confidence that there was something. But was it real? Was it possible? Could it be that he passed through? And indeed, when Klim emerged, all of us stared at him with such big eyes. We were silent. He took his regulator out. The water was flowing over the mask. He took the mask out and said, "Guys, I passed through." The siphon is short, isn't it? 10-15 meters, yes. Well, it's less about 8-10 meters. So we were calm. He passed through the siphon, so what? That's all right, nothing extraordinary. He just passed through a siphon, and there is a cave behind the siphon. And at this moment, you know, we could not control ourselves anymore. We went into such an ecstasy. Could it be real? He passed the siphon. We thought about that. We trained for that for the whole year. He passed through the siphon. The further there was a pitch, a real pitch. Well, Klim's reaction was incredible. Suddenly we began to shout and shout very loud. We were so happy. We won. We are the champions. Why were you frightening me? Jerked the rope on the 20th minute and disappeared. You passed well. No one has ever dived the siphon in such depths. A huge pitch, very beautiful. There is a waterfall, 40-50 meters, no less. I think we can reach 2000. Real hero. What will you say? Isn't it cool to pass through the siphon at these depths? Yes, I'm happy. It is really cool. Next week, Oleg and Denis went beyond the siphon 3 times. The most optimistic predictions proved correct. The cave continued after the siphon. The stream went deeper and deeper underground. Both equipment and rope came to an end. The 2 cavers did the rigging very economically, sometimes even too economically, neglecting some rules of safety. As Denis remembers, it was a real celebration of the first-time exploration. There was a somewhat narrow place I'm trying to squeeze. I know it's very hard to pass it in a dry suit, and I'm afraid I'll tear it. And how would I return then? I squeeze and realize at the same time that I see another pitch. I recall I shouted some nonsense, something like, "I love you, cave." One day, cavers underground felt the earth shake. An earthquake. All groups that were deep inside the cave felt it, but on the surface, everything was calm. Fortunately, the cave survived it all right. Pitches were not damaged, otherwise it would be hard to imagine the consequences. Oleg and Denis reached the depths of 1,680 meters. Here they used their last rope and last spit. Having used all the anchors and all ropes, we had a sense of satisfaction. That is, we understood that no caver could descend deeper than we did, and no one could do more. We were standing and looking into the darkness of the next pitch and thinking that it was just the beginning. I think the cave felt our presence. She felt how stubborn men were trying to reach something very secret, very remote and hidden from everything. From the sky, the sun and the snow of the surface. They tried to go somewhere very persistently and they wanted something. I think the cave could feel all that. And in the last days of the expedition, I guess the earthquake and the floods and the fall of Kabanichin and her power warnings. People, I do not give up. You have to be friends with me and to live in harmony with me. During the last trip behind the siphon, Oleg and Denis even ran out of carbide in their lamps. They had to return using flashlights. Everything was finished, except for the cave, so they could leave, have a rest, and make plans for the next expedition. Everything is finished, everything. We'll go up using spare flashlights. Everything is finished, everything except for the cave. 1,680 meters and the pitch. 1,680 meters and the pitch. And the waterfall which falls into the abyss. Jack London once said, "I close my typewriter only when I know what I'll be writing tomorrow." So do we, standing on the edge of the pitch, we knew that sooner or later we would be back, drill anchors and go down into this pitch, and we would see what's down there. Everybody is happy on the surface. 1,680 meters and the cave continues. Tomorrow we must start de-rigging and pulling out equipment and underground camps. This needs strength, which is in short supply now. But today nobody wants to think about that. Less than a day is left to the moment when Sasha Kabanichin makes a small mistake and falls 30 meters down a pitch. The rescue operation is coming to an end. There is only the last pitch, the last 70 meters. Yuri Fomin, the head of the Sochi Rescue Service, takes control of the lifting. At 3 a.m., the stretcher with the injured Sasha appeared at the entrance of the cave. Later, Sasha would be transported to a hospital in Sochi. Bernard's diagnosis on the backbone fracture turned out to be right. "Sonny, you're on the surface." One doctor asked Sasha, "How were you transported from the mountains with such fractures?" She had no idea where he was actually transported from. Sasha spent 2 months in hospital, then a long rehabilitation period, but in a year he would be back to the cave. They all would be back here in a year. Almost 1 year had passed. On a warm August evening, there was something going on the Kursky railway station. 15 minutes before the Adler-Moscow train arrived, an orchestra showed up on the platform. Familiar characters stepped out from the train. The team had set a new world record in Krubera-Voronya, 1,800 meters. There another siphon stopped their way. The record lasted 15 days. In mid-August 2004, an expedition of the Ukrainian Spiller Society bypassed the second siphon and descended into the depths of 1,870 meters to find yet another siphon. And 2 months later, the Ukrainians descended even deeper. Exploration of Krubera-Voronya continues.